Oh, God damn it. Okay, let's see. Allow access.
Should we just...
No, we're working.
Firewall?
No, it was Windows security.
Yeah.
Okay, well, for those of you listening in, my name is Taylor, and I also go by Marshan Limited on the website dgreviews.com. Check us out sometime. And with me tonight, I have Chris.
Yo.
Anne.
Hi.
And Adam.
Hello there.
And we're going to talk a bit about cosplay. How much we're actually going to talk about, we'll see. We're kind of playing it by ear like this. So, let's get into it. And first subject of the night. What is this strange word, cosplay? The simple answer is, it is a combination of the words costume and play. Cosplay.
Well, it's something that, for me personally, cosplay is the sort of thing that it has more to do with, like, you dress up for Halloween, right? I mean, everybody dresses up in costumes for Halloween. And cosplay is very much the same kind of attitude. You're dressing up in costumes and you're going to check out other people who are dressed up in costumes and stuff like that. But the difference is that it's done at conventions for the most part. And you're doing it based off of a particular theme. Now, that being said, if you go to an anime convention and there's somebody there dressed as, like, Wolverine or, the Grim Reaper or something like that, that nobody cares. Everyone's, like, I should say nobody minds. People don't get all up in arms about it. At least reasonable people don't. But for the most part, it really is just about, you choose cosplay is about picking something that you love and then doing something to show that love. And that's really where cosplay comes from. It's an idea of being able to visibly show your appreciation for a series and not just have to talk about it.
I have heard that it's originated as specifically character costumes. The costumes are of a specific, fictional character. It started with Trekkies, I guess, from what I understand. And then kind of spread to all kinds of fandom. But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead, Adam.
No, I was done. You're good.
I think that's basically the only other thing that kind of separates it from Halloween costumes can be, and now it is kind of any general theme, but a lot of what it is mostly is still a specific fictional character that you're dressed as opposed to just a witch or a zombie.
That's true. Actually, that's an excellent point. Because while there are people who will come to the con as a zombie, and now there's getting to be quite a bit, that's a reflection of the fact that zombies have become so prevalent in our media and culture now. It was really surreal for me when I get to work and my boss and his coworker are talking about The Walking Dead. And neither one of them have ever expressed any kind of interest in this kind of thing ever before. I was just like, wait, am I dreaming right now? To try and wake up real quick. No, they're really talking. Wow. Okay. But yeah, so I don't know, what is cosplay?
It is kind of a big question.
Yeah, and it's something that it really does, as Anne was saying earlier, it means very different things to different people.
Yeah, I think it's easy to I think what is cosplay is incredibly easy, but the why is that's the hard part to quantify.
Well, people dress up for a lot of different reasons. I know. Do we want to go on to that question, I guess?
Yeah, we can move on to the question of why do people cosplay? Why do you personally cosplay? And I think the simplest answer that all of us can agree on is it's fun.
Yeah.
It is very fun. And like Adam touched on earlier, I've yet to see anyone truly criticized at a convention for their cosplay.
Oh, well, it happens.
Well, yeah, I know it does.
Not really at conventions, though. Where you see that's online. People turn into just giant dick bags when they're online.
Right.
Well, that is the internet for you.
Yeah.
Right.
But when you're actually at a convention, it's an incredibly positive experience. Even people who have incredibly simple, rudimentary, or even terrible costumes get a lot of, A lot of positive feedback, stuff like that, because it's like, hey, you're having fun and being silly.
Yeah.
And that's something for me, like I can say personally, I will spend months, sometimes even years working on a costume. I'll spend thousands of dollars and just hundreds of hours making incredibly elaborate, huge costumes. But I don't look down on people who spend an afternoon the day before the convention and grab some clothes out of the closet and go have fun. Because the reality is, I'm having just as much fun as they are, and they're having just as much fun as I am. But I spent thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours, and they spent 10 minutes, you know.
And not everyone has thousands of dollars to spend.
Yeah, I really don't. I make poor decisions with my money. But
well, I remember telling somebody a long time ago that personally for us, it felt like we were paying tribute whenever we ended up making a costume.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it became more of an expression of how much we appreciated, you know, who made the original works and stuff. So, you know, the fact that we loved the series so much, you know, we wanted to, you know, not just show how much we loved it, but how much we appreciated that it existed in the first place. And to us, that meant not holding back and showing any restraint when it came to, you know, how we built the costume.
Mm-hmm.
So we went very out of our way to do the most elaborate and ridiculous things we could do.
Well, and part of it too, there is sort of, I don't want to say unspoken because people talk about it all the time, but there's a pretty solid amount of competition that goes into cosplay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know, in a way that I could make sort of like a sports analogy. It's like lots of people go out and play baseball, but there are very few people who go and actually like try and be in a league kind of thing. And I think for a lot of people, cosplay is kind of the same way. It's like there are a lot of people who just like going out and enjoying it. Some people come out and watch, some people come out and participate, but they're just going out there to have fun. They're not really terribly focused on it. And there are people who get crazy mad into it, and start spending all of their waking hours thinking about it. So it's like when we're doing the Cosplay Overdoing It panel, one of the things we talk about is, when you've been working on a costume after like about the first week or so, you start getting what we call cosplay eyes, where you'll be walking around a grocery store and you'll look at some apples and you'll be like, how can I use those apples in my costume? Like everything that you see starts looking like something that you could use.
Yeah. And you get scared to throw things away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you know you can turn it into a staff later.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting that you bring up the competition element because a buddy of mine was sitting down and watching a whole bunch of cosplay videos from different cons, and we came across several based around cosplayers from other countries coming to conventions here and commenting on that competition aspect, because apparently in Mexico that's not as much of a thing, but apparently that it's just as much of a thing over in Europe, which I just thought was kind of interesting to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I know there are big competitions around the world, and there's even like a worldwide cosplay competition.
Yeah, the World Cosplay Summit is a big deal now. And we've competed in Masquerade at Anime Expo, which Masquerade is like the big costume competition. And for people who have not been to Masquerade at like the bigger conventions and experienced it, it's like when we competed in, I think it was 2007 when it was our first year, the stage we competed on was the same place that they have the Democratic National Convention. It's like this huge arena, and it was completely filled. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of people there, and the people that you're competing against are all making these spectacular costumes. And then the second year that we did it, it was we were at the Nokia Theater in Los Angeles, so it's like the same place they do all kinds of big award things, and like it's a main venue, a huge venue, and it's. So you're not just like competing and having a couple people looking and judging and stuff like that. It's like you do separate judging with independent judges that will decide who is going to win what and stuff like that. But when you go out and you actually perform your sketch in front of the audience is colossal. you're being seen by thousands of people, and it almost immediately ends up going up online with video. So, and then those videos each get tens of thousands of hits. So it actually, it gets to be pretty intense. And then now Anime Expo, like, it used to be when you won Masquerade, you would get like a bunch of DVD box sets and a bunch of like these comically oversized Pocky boxes. And like figurines and stuff like that. And like one of the things when we won in 2007, one of the prizes we won was best One Piece costume. And we won like this big monster chopper statue that was signed by a bunch of the people back in Japan who, like the director of One Piece and stuff like that. So just some really cool stuff. But now the prize is like $10,000 cash.
Wow.
It's like, Jesus Christ. So the competition is becoming more and more fierce, more intense. And getting to the point where it's like the people who are competing for it now, because it used to be like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, if you made a costume, you stood out. Because there weren't that many people doing it. And there was always a couple people, there's always been a couple people like us who are crazy. But all in all, there weren't that many people cosplaying. But now you go to a convention, if you're wearing jeans and a t-shirt, you feel out of place because so many people are wearing costumes.
And I can vouch for that because I've done that before, and boy, do you feel like just the most awkward tourist.
I remember the first time you guys dragged me to Fanime, and I was like, there was a part of me that wanted to just show up in a Bash costume, like right off the bat, because I was a huge fan at the time. And then I was like, at the same time, I was like, I've never been to this convention. I don't know what to expect. And I was like, I'll just feel it out this year. I immediately showed up and was like, oh, God, why didn't I make a Bash costume?
Yeah.
It's still fun to go and people watch, but if you like wearing the costumes, go wear a costume also.
Yeah.
Then you can watch other costumes and wear costumes.
At the time, it was very unnatural to think of a place where it's like, Halloween is happening all the time.
Yep.
It is an odd realization.
Well, and two, I mean, when you ask, like, why do you cosplay? Like, that's one of the questions on the list here. And for me, that attention that you get is such an incredibly positive thing. I mean, it literally is. It's 4 days of having thousands of people come up to you and tell you you're great. And asking if they can take your photo, and if they can take a photo with you, and just telling you look awesome, and it's incredibly fun, and it's one of those things where it's like, it's hard to go for a couple of days of having people tell you that you're awesome and not feel awesome.
Yeah.
Like it's really fun. And then you get to meet other people who are wearing costumes from the same series as you. Sometimes it's the same costume. And it's neat in that regard too, because you know instantly that you're going to have a connection with that person. Like you can walk up to them and just be like, let's have a 2-hour conversation about this series that we're both dressed as. Because if you're both dressed as characters from that, chances are you both care about it enough to know everything that's going on with the series and have plenty to talk about.
We have made a lot of friends because of cosplay.
Yeah.
That's really the reason I cosplay. For me, it's a way to do kind of like verbal fan art of a series that I like and kind of promote something that, and that way I get really excited when, like, I see someone dressed up as a series I like, and I'll run up to them and be like, hey, you're from that thing I like, let's talk about it. And similarly, I always feel really good when someone recognizes a costume that I'm wearing and they come up and they want to talk about that series too. It's great. It's the best way to meet people.
Yeah. And sometimes you get, as a fan, you get to experience some things when you're wearing cosplay that you normally would never get to experience. Because like the first time we did our big One Piece group, where we were all dressed as characters from the series One Piece, we had just arrived at the convention and we were goofing off and taking photos and stuff like that. And this old Japanese man came up to us and asked if he could take his picture with us. And we were like, yeah, sure. And we all posed with him and we're silly and and he was like, you guys are great, kind of thing, in Japanese. And then he kind of walked away. And then his translator came up and was like, that guy's the lead animator of One Piece, just to let you know. And we were like, whoa, wait, what? But he was already gone. So, and then similarly, like, I made two costumes, one for Chris and one for Jay from Afro Samurai, and then our friend Garrett went as Ninja. Jay was Afro Samurai, and Chris was Justice. And the three of them went to the Afro Samurai panel where the creator of the series was there.
Yeah.
And he saw them in the audience and called them back. So, Chris, why don't you tell him about that?
God, what is there to tell? It was very funny because Jay, like we we showed up and immediately like everybody in the room, like the panel had kind of already started and we were like sheepishly walking into the room and trying to sit down and everybody immediately looked at us and was like, and then you hear the murmurs and then everybody, the creator and all of the people on the table looked at us and they started murmuring. All this happened like while somebody was trying to ask a question, the poor guy. And then when we were sitting there just listening to the panel, and Jay was like, I think I have a question. And he goes up there and he's like, so hey, I'm Afro. And everybody was cheering. And he's like, and my boys Justice and Ninja are over there, and everybody was cheering at us. And I was throwing up the horns to the developer. And Jay goes, his question was like, he goes, so Ninja was a figment of his imagination that is now gone, and I already killed Justice, but he came back. So I'm just wondering, like, how many times do I have to kill these guys before they fucking stay dead? Yeah. It was really just Jay being a ham, but it was enough to sell the point, and then going back there and getting to talk to him, and his English wasn't great, but it was clear that he was very touched by all the trouble we had gone through. Like I showed up in face paint, for Christ's sake.
I've seen that posing with you guys too from the photos.
Yeah, and it's like he it's funny because in the photos he looks very serious, but whenever the cameras weren't flashing, he was like, God, you guys are so awesome. Like he was picking up he picked up Jay's sword and like to stay accurate with the original sword design, it had this long chain with the gem attached to it. And like we were showing all our props off to him, and he picked up the sword and he kind of swung it back and forth a couple times, and he's like, I never thought about it when I was drawing it, but now that I'm actually swinging the sword, the gem hanging there is like incredibly impractical. So yeah, good time.
Good times indeed.
Yeah. So we've actually had quite a few experiences like that. I mean, like the first Chopper costume that we made for our friend Ari, the director of One Piece was at Anime Expo, like one of the directors of the anime, and he when he met her and saw her costume, like one of the things we did is the character Chopper is very, very cute, and wherever he walks, there's this little squeak every time he takes a step. And so we actually went to the Petco and found squeakers that would actually like match the sound, like squeaky toys that match the sound, and we pulled the squeakers out and we put them into Ari's shoes. So not only was she dressed as the character, but every step that she took, it made that little squeak sound that the character did. Which you would think would get annoying, but no, it was cute all 4 days. Like, it never stopped being cute.
It was every time we heard it. Like, 3 days later, we were still cracking up just walking down the halls.
She eventually mastered how to control the squeaks, didn't she?
Yeah, like she could get different tones out of the squeak to imply different emotions. It got to be pretty ridiculous. But when we were at the toy booth, the director of One Piece was there, and when he saw her costume, he was like, "Wow, your costume's really great." And then she was like, "Really?" And she like put her arms up and like jumped up and down a little bit, and it made the squeak noises when she jumped. And then he just flipped out. He was like, "Oh man, that is the coolest thing!" And then he gave her a big hug, and he was like, "You are my favorite One Piece costume I have ever seen." And that's a hell of a thing coming from the director of One Piece.
Yeah,
that really is.
So yeah, it's not just like for the why we cosplay. It is a lot of it is the positive attention that we get, but it's not just that. It's also that you get to experience things like that in the nerddom that you normally don't get to see as just a regular fan. Like you attend these, if you just go to these conventions as a regular fan, you sit in the back of the room and you're looking at the guy behind the table and While a group of people with terrible questions come up to the microphone and they ask them.
Is there ever a good question at a Q&A?
Sometimes.
It happens. It never seems to happen at the panels I attend, but
I like
But
to
I've heard that there are good questions out there.
I think well, see, here's the thing. That's like, when I'm hosting panels, I invite questions throughout the entire panel. Because it's like, I like, because I do panels on costume design, and I do panels on dating and relationships. And in both of those, I have people come up throughout the entire panel and ask questions. And that way, the questions they ask are relevant to what we're talking about at that time, and it seems to work a lot better for me. But for so many of these things, they have this incredibly carefully planned 40 minutes, and then at the end they have 10 minutes for questions, and people lined up in front of the microphone, and there's no relevance to what anyone has been saying in those questions by sheer fact of the fact that they're done talking by the time we get to those questions. So it's a system that doesn't work very well.
it's not a conversation anymore.
So,
but I don't know. We've had, I think historically we've had some pretty good questions at our panels.
at our panels, yeah, we actually have, that's something I'm always very proud of, is we have really amazing questions asked. We get a few bad ones, of course.
Yeah.
But for the most part, the people asking questions are actually, pretty engaged and are asking really good questions. So anyway, we're way off topic now.
Yeah, we are. Okay, so I think that covers why people cosplay pretty well.
Okay.
And so let's move on from our little tangent and go about thinking, how do you pick a costume?
Well, picking a costume is something that is a very personal thing. And I mean, there are a few people who will basically just pick a costume from a series to go with a group. But for the most part, if you're going to put the time and the effort and the money in to make a costume, because there are very few anime costumes that you can go, or video game costumes that you can go down to Walmart and buy off the shelf, even at Halloween. Most of these require some kind of investment of time and money, and a lot of research and trial and error and practice and trying things. And so in order to make sure that you're actually going to finish the costume, it kind of has to be a character that you really care about and something that you're going to be pretty committed to.
Or at the very least, you have to be committed to the design. Because I know there's a lot of people who they'll cosplay a character they don't even know just because they like the outfit.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's cool. I can understand that.
Yeah, my friend Heather, she picks costumes because she really likes that they're really intricate and detailed and giant, huge dresses and amazing, kind of unrealistic outfits. And that's part of the reason why she likes cosplay. She likes the challenge of making those ridiculous designs reality. But it varies from person to person. Sorry, carry on.
Okay. For me personally, now that I've been making, over the last, so let's see, I started cosplaying back, I think, in 2003.
Yeah.
And so over the last, 2003, 2004, somewhere around there. So over the last 8 or 9 years, I've made probably 30 or 40 costumes.
That's a pretty good number.
Specifically for conventions, doing cosplay. And only 6 of those have been for myself. Most of them have been for other people. But for me personally, when I pick a costume, I look at a couple elements. I make sure it's a character that I like. Whether I like them because they're a good guy or a bad guy, that's kind of irrelevant. It's just is this a character that I like? And then I will, from the list of characters that I like, I will try and find one that I like their costume and I feel like I'm physically a good match for it.
Let me interrupt you for a second. With that last comment, that is to say that you feel that your body type matches up with it. You take in your own physicality into your choice.
I do, but that's not something that I feel is terribly necessary.
Yeah.
That's
a lot of people don't do that.
Yeah.
There's a lot about that.
That's just fine. That's one of the things. It's I cosplay as Zoro, who is a swordsman and the manliest of men from One Piece. And yet, some of the very best Zorros I've seen have been women. It's really not, like, when it comes to choosing a character that fits, that's something for me personally that I like to do because I like the competition. I like the trying to make a costume that's, like, you know, as perfect as it can be. Like, anytime that I'm sitting down to make a costume, I go from the perspective of being like, I want it to look like I was what the artist was looking at when they designed the character, not the other way around. But again, I'm kind of crazy. And I appreciate that most of the people most people who cosplay don't do that. Most people who cosplay, they pick a character that they like or a character that they want to make the costume of, or they're like, wow, I really like that costume. That's really cool. Or a lot of people will pick a costume because it's popular, because they know they'll get their photo taken. Or they'll pick a costume that is particularly revealing because they very know they'll get their photo taken. And
it's a little sad how true that is.
Yeah. Like anytime you see like the sexy no jutsu Naruto girls running around.
Or Faye Valentine.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Not so much with Faye Valentine. Faye Valentine girls tend to over-sexualize that when they wear it, but like the better Faye Valentine costumes I've seen are not super sexy.
A fair point.
So
that's kind of designed to be sexy character in general. I always kind of raise my eyebrows a bit at the sexy costumes of characters who are totally not, they don't act very sexy in the show, but that's something that people like to do. I mean, people like doing their own original interpretations of characters, so you get to see a lot of interesting designs through that point of view also.
Yeah.
That's true. You could dive into a whole conversation on just the psychology of cosplay, but we're not going to do that here. We don't have that kind of time.
Bullshit. We're doing that right now. The reason
did you know the story is crazy?
Yeah, because for me now, I've been making costumes so long and have made so many and stuff like that. I'll pick a costume just because it's challenging. Like, look at something and just being like, no one's ever done that costume before. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna make that costume because no one's ever done it, and it's gonna be crazy, and people are gonna freak out. That's like when I made I made my Bartholomew Kuma costume, which is a character that is absolutely colossal in the series. It's like a regular person comes up to his shin, as a character. So here's this absolutely monstrous person. He's huge, probably 50 feet tall. And I was like, okay, how am I going to try and make this in any kind of semblance of, you know, to really emphasize his size? And the costume I ended up making, I actually took some inspiration from Big Bird. Because it's like there's a false torso, and then my arm reaches up through the torso and into the bottom of his jaw. Like my hand sits in the bottom of the jaw of a giant puppet head that I made. So altogether, this costume is about 9 feet tall, and is very wide. And as a result, when I'm walking through the convention, like I very stand out, and I'm up above, and it's just all day. It actually got to be ridiculous because we had 2 costumes that were about that size, and everywhere we went, we could take about 3 steps before a couple people would stop us and be like, "Can we take your photo?" And we'd be like, "Yeah, sure, go ahead and take all the photos you want." And then in the time that we were stopped, by the time those 2 or 3 people were done taking photos, 20 more people would have lined up to take photos. And convention security kept coming over to us and being like, "You guys got to keep moving. You can't stand here." Because everywhere that we stopped, there would be a huge group of people taking photographs.
Basically, we're a walking fire hazard.
So, and that in itself was incredibly fun.
That sounds fun, but at the same time, that's kind of a sucky catch-22. Just stop to get your picture taken and get yelled at by con security.
Yeah. Well, and there is a downside to that, because it's like, when I was wearing that costume, I got all kinds of wonderful feedback and everything, and it was amazing. But that was also the same time that Chris and Jay were wearing their Justice and Afro Samurai costumes. And I didn't get to go to the panel because I was wearing a Kuma costume. And then when I found out later that he freaked out over their costumes, when I made their damn costumes, like I was like, ugh! You know.
Well, next time you have to make a costume that can fit through doors.
Nah, it's too late. I would probably still make the same decision because I was having so much fun getting my photo taken. Because this costume, like, to give you an idea of how big it is, there was a point where I was leaning up against a wall and eating ice cream inside of it. Because it was hot, so I was trying to cool down. So I'm sitting inside of this costume eating ice cream, you know, and like checking my phone and stuff like that. Because there's enough room in the torso for me to do that.
Perspective.
Pretty funny.
So it was sitting very still because I'm eating ice cream. And then a girl walks up to the right in front of the costume, and she's like, "Is it a statue? Is it real?" She's getting closer and closer, and I was like the jerk inside of me was like, "Oh, this is gonna be great." She got up really, really close, and when she was about a foot away from the costume, I leaned the whole thing forward, so it was just towering over the top of her, and was like, "Hi!" And she screamed, and she ran, like, she was just gone. Like, if this was a cartoon, there would have been a girl-shaped puff of dust right where she had been standing. And it was so funny and so much fun. And it's just, so much of doing cosplay is just, it is fun. Because it's like, you have a lot of fun on Halloween when you're running around and everyone's wearing costumes. And so doing a convention and doing cosplay like that, it's like having that fun of Halloween for 4 days straight.
Yeah.
Plus Disneyland, because you get to see other characters that you weren't expecting to, and freak out at them. It's awesome. It's 2 awesome things in one.
Yeah, it's 4 days of Halloween at Disneyland.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah.
So yeah, do it. Why aren't you cosplaying already, audience?
Yeah, Jesus, what's wrong with you, audience?
The reason I pick a costume is because for me it's a way to promote something that I really like. So I kind of I'll pick something that may not have as many cosplayers at the time, like it might be old and kind of forgotten. But I try to pick a design that will stand out enough that even if the people don't know it, which most people I don't expect will recognize it, it'll be interesting enough that they'll want to come up to me and ask, "Hey, what is your costume from?" So that I can tell them about it and hopefully get somebody new interested in the thing.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I go up to characters that I don't recognize either. I'll see a really cool costume design and go, "Hey, what is that from? I want to know what that's from." And they'll tell me about it and they'll be excited and want to go check it out. So for me, it's kind of a way to advertise something I like too.
Yeah, and show your appreciation for this series.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as nerds, we get so into stuff. And I mean, it's no different with other things. I mean, like, again, to look at a sports analogy, when you see a sports fan, it is not unusual for them to be wearing their particular team's emblems on everything they own and have stickers on their cars and be listening to the games on the radio and stuff like that. And then they look at us weird because we have like a little character hanging from our cell phone. They're like, "Really? Okay, Mr. Raiders fan."
Glass houses, people.
Yeah. So that's the kind of thing where it's like, for us being able to make costumes, it's a way for us to really express our appreciation for a series. Because it's something that, for a lot of it, especially like video games, you tend to enjoy in isolation. And so the only way to get people to know about how much you love the series is by talking to them in person. And so doing a costume like this lets you talk to thousands of people, like figuratively talk to them by just walking out and basically holding a giant sign that's like, "I love this series," but the sign's a metaphor for the never mind. I'm going all bad with this.
And it made sense to me.
Yeah, everybody that takes your picture is somebody that's like, "I know, right?"
Yeah. It's so much fun. And you go to the gatherings and people are being silly and people will see each other and, like, there was a point where, when we were doing One Piece cosplay, our friend Jay was dressed up as a Marine, who was one of the guys that's like a, sort of like a bad guy henchman.
Yeah.
And anytime that he saw other cosplayers, who were like from One Piece, he would yell out to them and be like, "I'm gonna come get you," like, it's like, "I'm capturing you," and he would run over and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it was very silly and very funny and just an enormous amount of fun.
And pretty terrifying in a couple of cases.
Yeah. And it's great. It really is a fantastic description, I think, it's like having Halloween at Disneyland for a couple days in a row. And that really is what it feels like. And it's something that unfortunately people who have never been to a convention have no frame of reference for. And people who've been to a convention but never cosplayed still don't really understand what it feels like. So everybody go cosplay, for Christ's sake.
Yeah. Pick your favorite anime's character.
Yep.
Video game
Video
character,
game or
movie
comic
character.
book or cartoon.
Yeah. Get yourself some construction
Book
paper.
character.
Have your mom sew you a vest.
Yep. Tinfoil.
Yeah, aluminum foil makes for great metal finish.
Yeah. Well,
I don't actually believe these things, but you know.
hey, I've seen some
everybody's gotta
really
start.
awesome cardboard Gundam costumes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always nice when someone makes a costume out of really, really good, really expensive material, so it looks like this is the live-action version of this character. But I'm always really impressed when people take, like, cardboard and hot glue and manage to make it not look like cardboard and hot glue.
I'm always, like, something that I'm always impressed by almost as much as, like, good craftsmanship in a costume is a clever idea in a costume.
Yeah.
Like, there are people who not even, like, not talking, like, using cardboard as a building material, but literally wearing, like, a cardboard box and just scrawling the word Gundam on the front with a Sharpie. That's fucking genius. It was like when we wanted to make the Brooke costume, and we were like, how do we make a skeleton out of a human being? You can't. Humans have skin. Let's build a puppet.
Yeah. So we built a life-size skeleton puppet that hung in front of the person who was puppeteering it.
And then steer it around.
Yeah, and then we, for the skull, we got like a Halloween skull that had a microphone deal with it, so that like you spoke into the microphone and there was a little motor that would move the jaw on the skull. And so we put like that Crayola like model magic onto it, and really sculpted the shape of the face so the skull matched the character Brooke from the series. And then ran the microphone back to our puppeteer who was back behind. So as Jay's walking along and moving the arms around using like the shafts of golf clubs to puppeteer the arms around, he was able to talk, and the jaw on the skeleton would move. But when people came up and looked at the skeleton, they could see inside of his rib cage. You know, I mean, it was so much fun. And I was very, very proud of that Brooke costume. That came out really, really well.
Yeah, it was a cool idea.
That was the one that won the prize, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was 2008 or 2008. That won best costume in the expert category for Masquerade at Anime Expo.
And he didn't make it that far too.
Yeah.
We kept making modifications and repairs on him, and he literally lasted long enough for us to do our sketch on stage.
Yeah, and then he was done.
Yeah, he pretty much shattered immediately after that. He almost didn't make it on the stage.
No. It was crazy, but it was so much fun.
And I think that kind of sums up like a con experience in general. Crazy, but some of the most fun you can have.
Yeah, absolutely. My favorite experiences from like the last 10 years have all been convention experiences. I mean, I have a tattoo on my left shoulder to remind me of an experience from a convention. It really is that intense to me. And again, it doesn't have to be. We're crazy with this. Like, we once spent more than $600 on parts for one coat, for one costume. Not even the whole costume.
Well, $200, but
$200 was just for the velvet. No, and the velvet alone was just $300.
No. It was $200 for everything. That was velvet, buttons, strings, everything.
No, I gotta disagree with you on this. That was way more expensive than that.
Regardless, lots of money.
Yeah. The point is, those are all very large figures to spend on one coat.
Yeah.
That I have a hard time storing nowadays because I'm so scared of hurting it.
Yeah. No, we spent way more than that, dude.
Hey, Adam, what's
Yeah.
your part about making costumes?
My favorite part about making costumes?
Finishing.
I'm sorry. Oh yeah, finishing them. Yeah. My favorite part is being able to look at something that's a 2-dimensional drawing, and then figuring out how to express that in 3 dimensions and how to create that.
That could be a real pain in the ass too.
Yeah.
Because I remember when we were first doing the Bash costume, we were like, okay, how many plates are on his boots? I don't know. On this page it's 6. On this page it's 20.
Yeah. And it's not like he changed boots.
No.
All he was doing was flipping through the air. So unless he kicked off boots and put on other ones between 2 flips.
Yeah. And he's an amazing individual, but, you know.
Yeah. But yeah, manga artists tend to draw for what looks good, not for what works in reality.
Right.
And Naito specifically, who's the guy that draws Trigun, he really likes to do physics-defying clothing, which ends up becoming quite the challenge.
Yeah.
It's fun though.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out how to make stuff that defy gravity in real life.
Like Cloud's hair, but
Yep.
Yeah. Right.
Or any of the ridiculous hairstyles that you see in anime.
Or Bash's hair.
Yep.
or that's Bash for that matter too.
Yeah. Which we did with, eventually we figured out the best way to do it was just, you hit it with that old, like, the most bad for the environment hairspray you can find. Like, you want to look for the little logo on the hairspray can, the aerosol can that's like, caution, using this will destroy the environment. And you spray the hair, and then you hold it up into the place that you want it to be, and then you hit it with a blow dryer. And then it becomes incredibly resilient. Like, it stays up frighteningly well.
I found out that gravity worked too. Like hanging upside down and just letting my hair fall to the floor. That worked pretty well for getting the shape right.
Yeah. So, yeah. Which is why, I mean, and we have 1,000 little tricks that we have learned for making costumes and how to save money making costumes and stuff like that.
We can do another podcast about that.
Yeah. That's
true. This subject can't necessarily be contained to just one.
Correct.
Well, it's something that, like, we do, when we do the panel at Paname and at Anime Expo on costume design, it's a 3-hour panel, and we just talk about costume design during that time. And then we usually go for another hour or two afterward.
Yeah. We always end the panel, and I'm like, oh, shit, I forgot to talk about Drydex.
Yeah. So we end up going outside and just continuing for whoever will stay around.
Hey, nice to meet you. Let me tell you about Drydex.
Fucking hate Drydex, man. It's such neat stuff when you're just working with it, and then like once it's totally dry, you like look at it funny and it breaks.
It became one of those things where it's like this happened to us like every year we did costumes. There was like there's one material or technique that we found that worked really well. So then when we ran out of time to do stuff, we applied this technique to everything we were doing to speed up the process. And it would work to a degree, but eventually backfire on us. And one year it was Drydex, and we were like, hey, this works great for everything. Oh shit, it broke.
Yeah. So there's always something like that.
Yeah. We do that every year. It was Drydex, and then it was 2-part epoxy, and then it was like fiberglass epoxy or something.
Yeah, we ran with fiberglass for a year, but that was just so incredibly hard to work with. We finally decided it's like fiberglass is just not worth it. There's so many other materials out there that you can get nearly the same level of effectiveness that's not going to be nearly as brittle and is going to be actually safe to work with. It's like most cosplay stuff you're working with, it's like, cool, whatever, you work with it. Like fiberglass is like, it's like, be careful. If you make a mistake, you'll get brain damage. It's like,
I think one year it was Wonderflex. Because we ended up having a bunch left over from my hat, my Justice hat. And we're like, we will build everything we don't have a plan for yet out of Wonderflex.
Yeah, we started using it even in places that made no sense at all, just because it was like, hey, it's Wonderflex, it's neat.
You use that for your cape, the collar on your cape too?
Yeah, but that's actually the kind of thing Wonderflex is designed for.
Yeah.
'Cause I have a huge cape that looks like a drawing of Dracula. Like the thing comes up past my ears. It's the collar on it is huge. But the entire shoulders and collar and everything on the cape is all Wonderflex, which is what's called a thermoforming plastic. And it has like a layer of, like a woven cloth inside of it. So it's a long it's like a big sheet, and you can cut it and sew in it, and you can heat it up and then shape it. And when it cools, it'll hold that shape, but it still stays kind of springy. It's kind of the like ultimate structural material to use while working with costumes because of that. But it is
going to be standing out in the sun for a
in
while.
the sun, yeah, because it will get soft if it gets too hot.
I learned that the hard way when we built that Justice hat, because that thing's covered in black felt.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a little droopy.
It's a little droopy now.
So, but again, we can just reheat that and reshape it. It's just you have to reheat it carefully because that's a synthetic felt, and when you heat that will get shiny.
Let's move on.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I get so focused on the technicalities of it because that's a big passion for me. I just kind of get lost in it.
That's okay. We already covered that you're crazy.
Yeah.
So we've kind of covered our list of topics so far. Anyone have anything that they'd like to add at this time?
I worry that if we talk about anything that's on my mind, we would be talking about building costumes for the next 3 hours.
Yeah. I want to stick with just like a basic introduction to what cosplay is.
I think we've done that.
Yeah, I think we.
Okay. Yeah, we have established that fairly well.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so closing statements.
I want to actually give a quick plug. Anyone out there that, like, if you're interested in cosplay stuff and you're coming to Fanime or Anime Expo next year, and we might do like the convention in Sacramento, like I'm looking to expand as much as I can. Because I love conventions, and I'm trying to do everything I can and go as many as I can. At every convention I go to, though, I'm going to be trying to host a panel on costume design called Cosplay Overdoing It. And they're always it's a very like free-flowing panel. So we'll talk about stuff at the beginner level, we'll talk about super advanced stuff, we'll talk about things that do and don't work, and it's a lot of fun. So Cosplay Overdoing It. The other thing that we do is we host a panel called Nerd Courting. That's all about dating and relationships, and it's the one thing that I actually have more to say about than I do costumes.
God help you if you go to that panel.
Yeah, it is it's very fun, it's very funny, and there are a lot of dating panels out there, but I can say with some pride that every time that we have done the Nerd Courting panel, it has actually been the best reviewed panel at the convention, at every convention we've given it at. So definitely come check that out. It is a lot of fun. And both of these panels are about 3 hours long. But in both cases, I always continue after the panel out in the hallway or wherever Consecurity will let us stop.
Moral of the story is clear your schedule.
Yeah. Because we do Nerd Courting in the evening because it's an 18 and over panel.
Okay, that's a bit better.
But that one, but my record for that is 8 hours straight talking about.
Good Lord, Adam.
Dating. So, and I sounded like Batman the next morning because my voice was just destroyed. But it's something that I'm very passionate about, something I've done a colossal amount of research on. I'm a communications is what I have my degree in. It's like I'm very good at understanding what's going on and helping nerds understand how dating for nerds is so different than it is for non-nerds, which is really what the panel's about. So anyway, so those are my two panels that I do. We have a website. It is fictonia.com, which I'm sure we can put a link, hopefully, in the description for the podcast or something.
Yeah, we can accommodate you there.
Yeah, and where we have a forum where if you're interested in costumes and stuff like that, come talk to us.
Or just general nerdery.
Yeah, we have a section for movies and video games. It's just a lot of fun. And we're trying to grow the community, but none of us are active enough because we end up feeling like we're just kind of talking to each other. So if you come and join, come talk to us. Like, we are the most approachable people you will ever meet.
Yeah.
So
It's true. They are.
So that's all I got to say.
Grab some friends, build some stuff.
It's fun. And
Oh, yes. Sorry, I'm
friends.
going to interrupt. I have more to say.
It's okay. We expect it from you.
On what Chris just said, grabbing friends. When you start working on cosplay, the biggest thing that I can say is get a group of friends together to work on costumes together. Because working on costumes with a group of friends is about 1,000 times better than working on costumes by yourself. It's very demoralizing when you're working on a costume by yourself, because no matter what costume you make, at some point you're going to realize that you've bitten off more than you can chew, and you're feeling overwhelmed and you're out of time, which is why a big part of cosplay is working on your costume in the hotel room at the convention. It's just kind of a tradition for cosplay, and every year I swear I'm not going to do it, and every year we're still doing it. I mean, it is not unusual for us to bring like 3 sewing machines to the convention just so that we're ready to go and to be working our hotel room like a goddamn sweatshop, trying to get costumes done that we've had all year to work on, but we waited until 3 weeks before the con to really start working in earnest. So having a group really helps to bounce ideas off of and keep each other motivated, and like, you know, and just as long as you're talking about all the costume stuff, like, if all of your friends know that you're desperately looking for a particular kind of bauble to hang from a necklace kind of thing, they're going to be thinking about that the next time they're at the mall and they walk by a jewelry store and they see the perfect bauble. And they'll just be like, oh, dude, and then they'll buy it.
And a group will have a wide variety of abilities and ideas and stuff. So, whereas you might not know how to approach a situation, somebody with a completely different skill set or mindset even will probably be able to fill in the gaps for you.
Yep. You may not be good at sewing, but if you're really good at, say, making props, like working with wood, making, guns and swords and stuff, that's also really awesome.
Yeah. Because like within our group, our main 3 costume designers are actually me, Chris, and Alicia. And for our older costume groups that we did, like now it's become, because since we've all kind of scattered to the winds all across the country, that's not really the case anymore. But when we were all living in the same place, it was us 3, and everybody contributed, everybody helped, but it was like I did probably 90% of the sewing, Chris did probably 90% of the props, and Alicia did 90% of like the drawing and the detail, the extra little art touches and everything like that make the costumes that much more special. And we all overlapped quite a bit. Like I helped a lot with the prop making, and Chris helped a lot with the costume design, and so like it's something that comes around a lot. But people tend to have specialties and skills, that end up working well within a group. So that, yeah, okay. Now I'm done.
Yeah.
You sure?
No.
Yeah. Can't recommend a group enough.
Well, it's just more fun too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of lonely working by yourself. I mean, I used to just work on costumes together with my friend Heather, and we'd put on old cheesy movies or something, and each work on our own costume. And even if we weren't working on the same costume together, if we were doing our own thing, it was still cool to have somebody else there. Again, like Adam said, to bounce ideas off of, and just to have someone else to talk about it with.
Well, and plus, if you're at a convention and you have a group, you're a lot more easily recognized, especially if you're an obscure character. When we had like One Piece cosplay, one of the characters Anne did was a character named Colby, and she did a version of his costume from much later in the series. And within the series One Piece, there are so many characters. If you're not doing one of the main characters, chances that somebody will recognize you when you're by yourself, fairly small. But when they see you walking next to the main character in the series and the two of you pose together, people are immediately like, oh yeah, that character, I remember that character. Oh man, that's awesome. And they get all excited. So
It's good too. Like if Colby's got a very kind of plainclothes costume, so if I weren't next to them, I could just look like, someone dressed normally with pink hair for some reason. So it definitely helps, especially with those kinds of costumes that they don't specifically stand out as being costumes, to be in a group, to have more chance of someone recognizing at least one of the characters and then making the association when they see the rest of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, do that.
All of it.
So get the cosplaying, people. That's what we're trying to say in our roundabout fashion.
Yeah.
The water's fine.
Yeah. And again, it doesn't have to be if you're new to it and if you don't know how to sew, if you don't know how to make props or anything. There are plenty of costumes you can make just from, collecting clothes from Goodwill or whatnot, or going through your closet. There are enough sort of plainclothes designs that you can figure out just so you can still dress up and have fun and not have to work as much as on some of the more challenging costume designs. And that's still perfectly fun too.
Yeah.
Or again, cardboard robots. It's still fun.
Make some cardboard Gundam.
Some of my
Save yourself
favorite,
some laughs.
some of my favorite costumes have been where people just take like a cardboard box and they paint like someone did 8-bit Link from The Legend of Zelda, and it's just the sprites, a giant cardboard sprite, and you just saw the sexy lady legs sticking out from underneath of it.
Oh, jeez.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
And all you do was just paint on some cardboard and carry that around with them. So have fun with it. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be an expert tailor or an expert prop maker and have access to woodworking tools and amazing wig styling skills.
All those things help, but you don't need any of them.
Definitely do help.
None of them are critical.
Yeah.
And that's part of the spirit of cosplay is that we're all geeks, we're all in one place, we're having fun. That's it.
Yep.
And so, what do you say we call it there, guys?
I'm down.
Yeah, thank you for inviting us.
Yeah. That was fun.
Hey, thank you for sharing your experiences and expertise with me and my listeners, because I'm still new to the cosplay thing. So, yeah, that was Chris, Ann, and Adam. Hopefully we'll be hearing again from them soon. And I'm Taylor, a.k.a. Marche Unlimited from DGReviews.com, and we'll see y'all later.
Peace, Internet.